The NASCAR president, Steve Phelps, joined us here on the Peacock Pit Box, along with Jeff Burton, Dale Earnhardt Jr. So, Steve, you had a meeting with the drivers yesterday on safety. What was your message in the meeting to the drivers? What did the drivers want to say to you? And was the meeting as productive as you had hoped?
Well, let me start with this. It's great to be here with you guys. It's been a while since I've been up here, so thrilled to be here. Just before I answer your question, Marty, on safety, I think that NASCAR safety is the single most important thing for NASCAR, the safety of our drivers. And I think we have a 2-decade history that would suggest that that is a true statement. So are there things that we need to do to this race car that make it safer? Yes, particularly in the rear of the car, right? But there are also things in this car that are safer than the last car. So we are going to continue to iterate on the car, working with our drivers, right? So yesterday, we had an all-driver meeting, which was terrific. We have another group that gets together with the drivers. It's called our Driver Advisory Council. It's got a great executive director. It happens to be Jeff Burton. But there are 7 Cup drivers on there, and we talk about all kinds of different things, right? And they're also NASCAR people, obviously, safety people, competition people, engineers, etc. But that group has a number of different things it talks about, including safety. With that said, as great as the Driver Advisory Council has been, there's nothing that is as good as having an all-driver meeting, right? And we probably should have had one months ago to try to deal with the safety issues and what the drivers were feeling in the race car. So that's on me. With that said, we're going to have all-driver meetings for the rest of the year, so we're going to do them on a weekly basis. I thought the meeting was incredibly productive. The drivers were candid. We showed them a path forward on, for example, in the rear of the car to try to take out some of the stiffness that exists, a bigger crush panel. But overall, listen, we want to hear what they have to say. We care about what they say, and we're going to continue to iterate on the car to make it safer.
Yeah, I guess, for me, the concussions is the most concerning part, and that is, very terrifying for a driver who's actually went through it. So how do you help a guy like Kurt Busch or Alex Bowman gain confidence, renewed confidence in this car?
No, that's a very fair point. So we showed some data yesterday on the crashes. We had a crash test this week that crashed the rear of the car, that created a bigger energy transfer into the back of the car versus an energy transfer into the driver himself, right? So both the head and the head surround and what happens there, as well as things that they're feeling in their body, because they're taking hits that don't look bad, but they're feeling it, right? We understand they're taking bigger hits. So we want to make sure that when we get to the clash at the Coliseum, that those drivers, when they strap in, know this car is going to be successful, and that we have made changes to the vehicle that are going to soften the blows that they're taking.
Steve, another conversation came up this week was some team owners are saying that they're struggling with the current model. They need a new pathway forward. You guys have acknowledged that, yes, some things need to change. What is the next step, and what can happen in the future?
Well, I think race teams probably don't really care about team profitability. I'm telling you, race fans should care about team profitability because it creates better competition on the racetrack, right? That's all. That's what fans care about. They don't care about, profitability of a race team. But it's important, right? Because if teams don't have the money to be able to compete on the racetrack, we're not going to have as good a racing. And so what we're doing as the sanctioning body is moving forward, having our discussions with the teams that would suggest that we're going to give the teams more money from a revenue perspective. But we also need to work with the race teams on the expense side of things as well, right? And there's a balance there. Like any good business, revenue in, expenses, and look at the profitability on the bottom line is critical. And so we're going to do that. I'm confident we're going to do that and get to a good place with our race teams moving forward. Again, we're not going to talk about what the negotiations are here, but I'm excited about what that future is going to look like with our race teams, because I do believe NASCAR and our race teams coming together, that's a better thing in order to help promote the sport.
How concerned are you that you could potentially lose a race team, a current race team, or even some of the newer teams like Michael Jordan, and also deter some others from being involved?
Well, NASCAR ownership, or the interest in NASCAR ownership, it's never been as high as it is right now. It just isn't. I mean, I've had some discussions recently with both those that are in the industry and those that are outside of the industry who want to come, because there's a relevance to NASCAR. The sport's growing again, which is fantastic. We want to make sure that we're retaining the people who want to be here, right? But we have a pipeline of people who want to come to this sport, which is fantastic, and we're going to continue to nurture that. If I'm a new team owner that's coming in and I can see that there's a way to have profitability, but also be competitive on the racetrack on day one, which frankly we've seen some runner race teams, right? So you look at Trackhouse Racing, you look at 2311 Racing, they're winning races, and that's what we want. We want to make sure that this is the most competitive field in NASCAR that we've ever had, and I think that's bearing out on the racetrack.
You mentioned the competition, 19 different winners this year. How would you assess the competition with the new car in 2022?
Listen, I think the car has done everything it was supposed to do from a competition standpoint. You mentioned 19 different winners, 5 first-time winners. We've had more green flag passes for the lead than we've ever had in the history of the sport since we've been doing loop data. And then passes throughout the field, the most we've had through 31 races. So we're going to break that record too. It's just exciting. We had a meeting yesterday with one of our race teams who some people would consider to be kind of the back of the grid. And this principal said to me, he's like, you know what, when I go to a racetrack now, every single time I go to a racetrack, I believe we can win. He said, I've never felt that before this next-gen car, which is terrific, right? I mean, isn't that what we want, is that the underdog can come in here and win? And we've seen it, right? You have a guy like Eric Jones at Petty GMS. I mean, but we're going to have that 20th winner, I think, before the year's out, which would be terrific.
Well, I hope it's today, because that'll give us something to talk about. That'd be fun. Also, earlier this week, you guys announced your new driver diversity combine, group of young drivers trying to help with diversity. How is that going? What's working and what could be improved?
Well, it's really important for us. So for fans that don't know about our Drive for Diversity program, is a program that's been implemented 12, 14 years ago and has some fairly successful graduates from it. Kyle Larson, Daniel Suarez, Bubba Wallace, and a shout out to Nick Sanchez, who won the ARCA Menards Series. Very proud of him. But that program is both for driver development as well as crew development. So as you're walking around the garage and you see different folks here, you can point out men and women, people of color as well as women who are now crewing cars, driving race cars. It's an important thing to make sure that we are having those that are participating in the sport are diversifying that group, but also diversifying our ownership group in our fan base. And that's exactly what's happening. We're very, very pleased with the direction that's going. But the Drive for Diversity program has been just a big success for us.
Well, Steve, on behalf of NASCAR fans everywhere, thanks for your time to address all of these issues. I know you've been a busy guy, but we appreciate you coming up here and joining us for a little while.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.